Hi, guys. Welcome back to the Purposeful Wisdom Podcast. My name is Dawn Christine. Thank you guys so much for being here today. I am truly humbled and excited to bring these two beautiful souls on the podcast today. Today, I have with me Thomas Workman and AJ Cavanagh. Both are intuitive channels, joy practitioners, and co-founders of Speaking from Source. Since meeting each other in 2016, Thomas and AJ discovered their unique ability to simultaneously channel a collective of non-physical beings they call the guides, a group of angels, ascended masters, native ancestors, elementals, intergalactic and interdimensional beings who speak with one voice from the universal mind. These divine beings share messages for the expansion and evolution of humanity and focus their teachings on helping humans achieve a more consistent state of joy in their lives. Through Speaking from Source, Thomas and AJ's mission is to share the wisdom of the guides with as many people as possible. They also offer individual, private, and group channeling sessions with the guides who answer your most important questions. Speaking from Source offers weekly emails with brief messages of wisdom from the guides and a monthly online interactive channeling called Conversations with Source. Hi, gentlemen. Thank you so much for being here today and sharing this space with me. It's truly an honor to be with you.
Oh, thank you. We feel honored to be here as well.
Yeah, so happy to be with you and your audience.
Oh, so I always have to start out with how. How did you guys even know that you were challengers? How did you come together? I've never seen two people channel at the same time. So this is totally unique.
Yeah, it is unique. We haven't found others yet that do this, though we think this is going to happen more in the future. That as you may notice that many people who are channeling today are channeling collectives. But I also think that as we move towards oneness, we'll see more channels collectively channeling. In fact, in several of our practice circles that we've been in over our lives, we've watched those circles start to share that energy and channel as a group. And I think that's the same phenomenon happening here. We think that what has happened for us is really a way to demonstrate that there is a single universal mind, and we're all reading it.
I think that's beautiful. So just so I understand correctly, so if in your circles, is it all of you channeling at the same time? Like, how are you able to understand what's going on? Or is it that you take turns and Source speaks through all of you individually in the circle?
Yeah, we AJ and I take turns, but what's fascinating, and we've seen this happen in larger circles as well, is that someone will be saying something while someone else is thinking the same thing. So this is what happens to AJ and I as we channel. AJ will be channeling something, but I'm getting the broadcast as well. I'm sort of getting the same download. And there are many times when, as the conversation evolves, a word approaches me and AJ will say the word. Bam.
Yeah,
Wow.
quite amazing, what's available for us in our consciousness right now. And you're seeing many channels that are coming to the forefront right now, and many more too, I think, as well, as these messages of oneness and these establishing connective elements with our guides and all of the resources we have for us in the larger universe are becoming really apparent for us. It's really fascinating. And I know, a number of people are becoming highly empathetic and empaths right now. And so we're really seeing this move to a oneness consciousness, which will really, when it finally happens, be phenomenally transformative in the world.
It's interesting, language and our speaking to one another is partly because we have no other way to kind of know what each other's thinking. As we grow in consciousness, part of that includes our ability to read each other's vibration, and thought is vibration. And so you'll see much more of this kind of telepathic communication, and that's really what's happening in this as well. It's interesting because the guides don't make very much of it. They were like,
It's normal for them.
it's like, this is functional. Don't worry about it. It's no big deal. And don't feel like you need to make this your claim to fame. Make our messages your claim.
Exactly.
They really
Absolutely.
get their messages out. So it's interesting that they are sort of like, yeah, whatever. They're less
Well, I
interested
mean,
in that.
even we're light beings. So when we go up and we return to source, that's how we communicate. So, for us, when we go up there, it's like, no big deal, right? But for the human experience, it's like the greatest thing since white bread. Like, how are you doing this? So I
Yeah.
can see the humbleness in it as well. And we forget as human beings, like, we really do have these abilities. They're just forgotten, they're just lost. And I think now we're coming together collectively, where I agree with you, Thomas. I think as we evolve here and we come together, we're going to be able to just communicate telepathically, like we are coming together as a oneness, where we have these abilities, and we're going to be able to help and teach each other these abilities again.
Yeah, it's very interesting. We've seen that in our cultural evolution, as things like, the motor car and airplanes and television and the light bulb, of all of these inventions and inspirations that were coming forward, several people were developing simultaneously across the world at the same time. So it is in the consciousness. And we see that today in the World Wide Web, in social media, how things kind of get planted in the consciousness and go viral very, very quickly, because we're all thinking about them at the same time. And yet we didn't have that direct communication. It was just in the consciousness, and we were open and ready to receive it.
So that's probably the key, where as a human, you need to have a certain vibration and be willing and open to receiving the messages from source in order to get the downloads and then share that message with others. Am I on the correct page with that?
Yeah, I think you are. And it's interesting when we have folks who want to work with us in intuitive development. One of the very first things we see as a challenge is the area of concentration. More than anything else, we're not used to that much concentrated listening. And I use that term loosely because I'm not sure we're listening per se as much as we're allowing for a download. We in our society today have distracted ourselves to no end. And so even our meditation time, where we use guided meditations, we don't really always just sit for 20 minutes and let the universe talk to you. The guides are constantly encouraging people to just put aside some time during the day to be adored by Source. And most people, when they first hear that, they're like, I have no idea what that means. I have no idea what I'm doing.
Sitting
Or
in
that
silence. It's the most beautiful thing, though. Like literally sitting in silence, because you could hear more than you think you do when you sit in silence and truly focus.
You will. And I think more importantly, we get oftentimes people say they can't hear their guides because they're listening for some kind of human thing. And I keep saying, we promise you, your guardian angel won't send you an email. We promise.
Right.
They may inspire an email or two, but they won't send you an email directly. And you don't need them to. You just need to sit and listen and watch what's happening around you, because suddenly you'll notice a bird right outside your window. Or you'll hear a sound, or there are just 1,000 things.
So, or you'll notice synchronicities that start happening in your life. Even when you do go out and sit in nature in a park or something like that, it's amazing how your field of awareness begins to expand and expand and expand. And you can hear a distant conversation on the other side of the park that you weren't even aware of before, because you're expanding your awareness and you're allowing in. Because, right now, as we all know, we're all very good at broadcasting. We're all putting stuff up there on TikTok and everything else. And yet it's a real change to say, okay, I'm going to allow to receive, and I'm going to become still and focused and connected.
It really is a bit of a discipline. I know there's a lot of baggage to that word, but it really is a bit of a practice to where you can get to the point and recognize your distractions, recognize where your head goes, recognize how, and again, we have generations, as I know you know, of individuals who just can't be in silence. They just can't be
Right.
without their cell phones or
Ugh,
some kind of electronic device, or but that's just training, right? And
right.
so but it's all exposure. So even in those cases, there's suddenly this issue that says, I wish I could talk to the universe. And that's the beginning of that conscious discovery. That's the desire is always the first step. That the guides always say, the reason we're talking to you is because you asked. And that
Right.
conscious act of asking, of desiring, of wanting to know, that's really all you need.
Ugh. So how did you guys discover that you had these abilities? Did you just like wake up one day and all of a sudden you started getting messages? Like, and how did you even as as the both of you, like, did one get it at this, like, did you guys figure it out at the same time? Like, did it come down to you guys at the same time, or how did this all happen for you guys?
It was very interesting because, as individuals before we met, we each had our own spiritual practice and we each had our own interests in spirituality. And, one of those interests happened to be a desire to learn to channel. And, for myself, and what the guides often say too is you're never alone. We're always speaking to you. And it's a matter of just fine tuning that setting or that frequency to connect with them, much like you would fine tune a radio or type in the exact address on the internet to get exactly where you want to go to. Once you establish that connection, it does open up. And for me, I've always been close to my intuitive skills. I've always looked for the synchronicities. I've always listened to my gut instinct, what I felt was the right place to go or the right thing to do. It's always steered me in the right direction. But oddly enough, and I think the same is true for Tom too, is that we found that the universe or our guides or our loved ones from the other side were kind of speaking in our head more and more and more. And that messaging became more and more apparent. And it kind of made me a little crazy at first. I'm like, is this my imagination? And it wasn't until I met Tom that he said, no, you're actually channeling. This is information and words that are separate from your personality, separate from your imagination. This is, unique insight and wisdom that's there to, advance our lives.
So I was a little bit less, my background was a little bit less, I came out late, if you will. And I want to make that point because I always joke with people that I came out as a metaphysician when I came out as gay. I mean, these two things were connected, and I think they were connected because authenticity is required. You have to be in yourself, and then suddenly everything opened up for me. But I had been studying for a number of years, so there was a point later in my life, in my 50s, where I finally said, and I had spent all my life before that with religious interest, right? So in other words, very interested in spirituality and really just knowing of various sectors of religion as the only conduit to that, right? Always wondering why it was that people were praying and it was a one-way conversation, never quite understanding. And not understanding why I saw so many religious people talk about spirit, but afraid of anything non-physical. It never made sense to me.
Yes.
So I came in with a lot of questions. I found a brilliant mentor, Sheila Cash, who I credit every day, who in Washington, D.C., who I took a ton of class from. I joined her psychic development circle, which was really just general psychic impressions in a group. And then one day she invited me, maybe a year and a half into my studies, she invited me, she said, I'd love for you to be part of my private channeling group. We do that only by invitation. I'd like to invite you. And I was like, I hope you have good refreshments because, I don't know what else is going to come out of this. And it took a while. And then sure enough, she proved to me that I was a natural channel. I was doing the same thing AJ was. I was going out on my patio every night and delivering a 10-minute recitation of something. I was either answering a question or taking on a topic. And I thought, well, you must just be a frustrated playwright, because different personalities would emerge. What I thought were characters that were actually perspectives, that were different
Wow.
divine perspectives. So as I developed a channeling practice, I really focused in and channeled most often a collective that I called the grandfathers. That was a collective of native elders. I would be immediately placed within the circle of these elders who were drumming, that we were around a fire. I could feel the fire, I could hear the drums, I could feel the drums. And I channeled the grandfathers and became very close and dear to them. They've been guides of mine for a while. So I was grateful to be able to channel them. And simultaneously, again, before we even met, AJ was doing something similar with the intergalactic beings. And
Right.
so he was channeling an intergalactic being. So when we first came together, we started our practice, just first our meditation practice, and then we started, so, just first meditation naturally leads to channeling, and we would serve each other. We would sort of support one another. So AJ might begin by channeling the beings, and I would ask questions and facilitate. And then at some point, we both just knew the energy was shifting. And so I would start to channel the grandfathers, the intergalactic beings would step aside, and AJ would facilitate for me. And we did that for a couple of years, really. And then one night, while we were channeling that way, I channeled the intergalactic beings and he channeled the grandfathers.
It was very fascinating because their energies were so different, they're so unique, and it was
Right.
fascinating because in holding space for Tom, I could see in his voice and in his movements this moving around the fire. And then when I was channeling myself, I was there. I was experiencing that. It was really quite something. And we asked the question then. This is very early in our channeling time together. Why did this happen, and what's this all about? And it was the grandfathers who actually acknowledged during the channeling and said, well, in our level where we're at, there's no separation. On Earth in the 3D realm where you at, there's lots of separation.
Of course.
But in our realm, there's no separations. And, our ancestors, the people we learned from, were actually the extraterrestrials, which was just fascinating.
He said, who do you think our ancestors are?
Wow.
And so they their joke was, well, we all know each other.
Right.
And that was sort of the launch of this and the beginning of understanding there's a single universal mind. And then from there, we kind of said, so we guess we're supposed to channel whatever comes through. And they said, yes, in fact, we have a larger collective that we're going to introduce you to. And then regularly, we would meet new entities in that collective. We would have an angel come through. We would have an ascended master, or a variety of ascended masters come through. We had an amazing introduction to an elemental. And so they kind of have all said, we're all here. In fact, the image they gave us was of this giant ball, almost a rubber ball, that had different faces emerging in different parts of it. And they make this wonderful analogy that I think is good for all humans to understand. They said, we have individual identities and perspectives, but we carry a universal mind. In other words, it is our collective individual perspectives that make up that universal mind.
Right.
And so we do here and invite, when we have groups, to have whatever divine being needs to come and needs to speak. So there are times in our channeling we'll channel just extraterrestrials, or we'll channel a combination, or it's always whatever is needed on the other side for people to hear from what perspective is most important. And especially when people ask questions of the guides, we definitely have different guides step forward and say, oh, I'll handle that one.
Yeah.
I'll take that.
I think it's quite fascinating, because they can read in to whoever is before us, and they can see, you know, whoever is the expert will come forward and answer that. And, you know, once again, it's a collective. They represent, even within their own realms, within the angelic realm or within the elemental realm, as a collective, because, you know, it's all one. There's all a sharing here. There's no separation. And so it's like one hand washing the other, as it were. It's really quite wonderful. And you know what's important about that, Dawn?
What?
What?
I'm so fascinated. Like I want more. This is so
I know,
good.
I want more too. Well, you know, what's important about that? What's important about that messaging is it said that, you know, no one holds the key. There's no one person you're supposed to worship or to be a guru to, or that is an expert on this. You know, you're all intuitive, you all have these abilities, and you can all share in this knowledge and understanding. And that's really the turning point in this aspect. And that's why you see so many channelers come through channeling a collective, rather than saying, oh, you know, I'm bringing in Napoleon right now, and he's going to tell us all about the history of the earth or something, you know?
Yeah, they've said to us, no more celebrities.
Yep.
We're past that time. We're really past the time where our talking through you is designed for you to become a celebrity. And I have to tell you, quite honestly, Don, for us, for me, the biggest challenge was, should we do this in front of others? Because we were just doing it ourselves. Still to this day, we have a practice. We just channel, the two of us, in time the guides call communion, once a week. And so we were sort of like, are we supposed to do this in front of other people? And what does that look like? How do we? And I was pretty hesitant, because what I asked the guides was, do you have some really wonderful channels? Do you really need another? Do you really need us? You know, you've got Esther Hicks, and you've got, you know, Bashar, you've got all these fabulous people, Paul Selig. Do you need us? And
yeah, I follow Paul too.
Yeah, I love Paul.
Yeah.
They said, yes, we do. And here's why. Because there are many, many people that need to hear the message, but they won't all hear from the same person. Some will relate to Paul, who is much more academic and much more religious in the way he channels his guides. And someone will hear it differently from Bashar than they'll hear it from our guides. And so the point they make is, there's someone we have in mind that you will reach, and more than just a someone. And so, yes, you're going to do this. We ask you to do this. They really asked us to take on this mission. And the mission is very clear. It's just share our messages with as many people as possible. Don't worry about how it's received. Just share it.
You know what's cool, what you said, you know, and you said like how all the beings, they're not separated, they all come together as one universal mind. However, they have different personalities and they interpret things differently. So for me, it makes sense. Like, of course, you guys should be in the mix with that, because you guys interpret things differently than, let's say, Paul and let's say Esther. So of course, because each of us as humans, we're going to understand, they may understand you a little bit better than Paul, right? Or Esther. So for me, it does make sense how the domino effect trickles down to humanity as well.
I think you're quite right there, in that, you know, as channels, you know, when we go into channeling, we certainly step ourselves aside to allow for those beings to speak through us. But what they're doing is they're using our vocabulary, they're using our life experience, they're using our energetic ability to match with them, to be a clear messenger of these source messages. And so that's what makes it so special and so unique. And that's why everyone's, you know, even though the messaging may be the same, everyone's style is just a little bit different, and we resonate to that as a result.
Well, you know, I think the grandfathers came and worked with me initially because I love humor. And I'm sure the grandfathers said, oh, he gets our humor, we should use him. and there are so many in the spiritual realm that use humor so brilliantly and are just funny.
I got to tell you something. I'll just share something with you, Dawn.
Please.
Actually, You know, when I channel the extraterrestrials, a lot of people think that they're very stoic, and they come across sort of like Spock on Star Trek. You know, they really are very, very particular about the messaging, and they want to deliver it very cleanly because that's really all they know. They're very, you know, A to B in that respect.
Right.
But when I channel them and I hear people asking the questions or a funny scenario, it's like I hear them saying, yeah, we understand. We're laughing on the inside, you know, and it's so
Oh,
funny.
so they have a dry sense of humor.
They do have a phenomenal sense of humor, but once again, I mean, they don't want it to overtake, shall we say, the messaging. But the extraterrestrials really are phenomenally sensitive to humor and compassion and our overall well-being, as are all of the ascended masters and the guides. That you know, the level of awareness and compassion in the spirit realm is really something that you know, we can learn from, and it's why I think so many of us are attracted to learning more and developing that relationship deeper.
You know, it's so
Wow.
fascinating. One of the things the guides talk about when they describe humanity is they describe it as a giant diamond. And that diamond has millions of facets. And so each of our individual facets has the ability to reflect light, and reflect light a little uniquely, right? So the facets aren't exactly the same, but they love to make the point. The beauty of all those facets shining only happen in the collective. Only
Right.
when you look at the diamond do you see all the collective shine that comes from that. And
Right.
that's been instructive for
Oh,
us to, because the same is true for us. And I think where we're moving as humanity is away from this individualization, right? When we talk about
right.
oneness, the opposite of that is separation. It's individualization. And so even our names separate us, right?
Of
I'm
course.
Tom, you're not. You know, this is, you know, so all of that kind of separation sort of makes us sort of say, I'm better than you, I'm less, I'm more than you, I'm different than you. And we focus there so heavily. And what the guides are showing us, I think, in the collective is this understanding of, no, you have a unique perspective. We created you that way. You were
Right.
created unique perspective, a unique set of talents, a unique set of abilities, but you share a universal mind. And that's such good news because there's so much ample wisdom in the divine realms.
I think the overall issue that I find in today's society is a lot of us don't realize that point, and our egos take over, where the I'm better than you, that separation. And I think that when that happens, that's where the true issue is. Ego takes over. We're in this constant competition. It's greed, it's fame, it's fortune, it's all the materialistic stuff. And at the end of the day, the way I view it is none of it matters. Like really at the root cause of it, like nothing should matter more than kindness, compassion, empathy, coming together. Like we are here to love one another and learn from each other and not step on each other to get our way to the top. And I think that's
Yeah.
why the world is the way it is, because ego is out of hand. And until we pull that back and realize the true meaning of life, of the gift of being in human form on this earth as light beings, like it's a privilege to be here. Like, I don't think many people look at it that way. It's a privilege. And a lot of us take it for granted. And then there's a lot that are waking up and realizing, oh, okay, like there's this divideness to us now. A lot of us are seeing things for what they truly are, and then there's a lot of us that just aren't awake yet. Have the guides talked about this to you guys? Like, is there going to be a time where this world comes together and we have peace in the world and we have love for one another and kindness and true compassion? Is that ever going to happen?
Yes, you know, well, you raised some very interesting points there. And certainly, you know, everything is really about balance. So, it's important to have your ego because, we've needed that in the past for our survival and our ability to grow and expand in that respect, and to go after the things that bring us joy, including, relationships and family and all of those other things. But it's important to have that ego in balance with everything else. And so, we are emerging to this better level of understanding, but we've also come from an environment that it has really brought out, the ego in us. We live in an economy which is based in scarcity. And it says, well, there's some for you and not some for others. There's more of here and less over here. And that creates competition, which is something we don't necessarily see, in the spiritual realm, because there's an abundance, there's enough for everybody, right?
Satisfaction, though, I think that a base tenet to all of this really isn't about how we feel about others, but accepting the love Source has for us. Really think that is the message the guides talk about the most. That is where transformation occurs, because all that greed, all that sort of getting mine, is because I'm convinced I have to get it. No one will give it to me. No one really cares what happens to me. At the end of the day, it's all sort of this exchange in relationships of I did this for you, so you do this for me. I love you, so you love me, kind of exchange. And the guides cut right through all of that and say, no, just understand, Source adores you. In fact, what they say that's so powerful to me is your soul's creation was meant to complete the universe. The universe is incomplete without your soul, not just your incarnation, this life. Your soul works across lives. That was created with such a purpose in mind that Source cannot imagine the universe without you. That is being loved. And we find that most of our clients start to finally begin the process when they fully realize how adored they are. And it's really a center of everything. Otherwise, it becomes sort of the do good command, right? And not behind it. But when you naturally know how adored you are, your cup is full and it overflows and it goes all around you. When you raise your vibration, you do so with thoughts that are based in appreciation.
Gratitude.
But on top of all of that is knowing I am so adored. I am so cared for. There's not a hair on my head that isn't numbered. And so to me, that's really the beginning. That's the first teaching that we have to help the population, because I would argue that most of our population has fallen asleep, has lost consciousness because they don't get what the value is. What's the point? The point is, when you're conscious, you're loved all day long. Right?
It's a huge message of hope to know that you're loved and that you're cared for, and that your very existence is essential in the grand scheme of things. You matter. You're important, and you're worthy of being the best version of yourself, whatever that means for yourself that you can be. So I think that's phenomenal what's coming through right now in terms of our ability to go inward and to focus inward rather than looking externally on what other people are doing.
Yep.
That's the problem.
In fact, I'm going to say to you, Dawn, that one of the things the guides talk about often to us and to our clients and groups, whenever we start bemoaning humanity and the humanity's meanness against humanity, they always say, no, we want to look at you. We want to talk about you, because you're not going to wake up one day in a world that has been transformed into oneness. No. It's going to happen not to you or with you, but through you. So the day you decide, I'm going to accept that person in the grocery store that I would normally in my mind judge as equally divine as me, as equally adored as me, that's the day we've moved a step towards oneness.
That's right.
And more and more of us come to this choice that say separation's just not working for me. The guys love to ask that question, by the way. They love to ask, how's that working for you? Right?
Right.
How is belief serving you? How is that action, that choice serving you? Because you can always make another choice. There's no judgment. You're always free to do another choice. And so that wonderful opportunity to say, I don't want to live in a world where everyone's separated anymore. And then to move that
Absolutely.
towards a decision that says, so what will I do today differently? How will I live as oneness today? That's, I
So
think, when
true.
we're going to transformation. Yeah.
It's so true. It's so true. Like I wouldn't even know. Like I'm just gonna ask, does anyone or is anyone like, hey, we want to talk to her? Like, is anyone coming through now that wants to have a message for my audience, for us as a collective? Is anyone wanting to speak out today?
Well, they're doing it.
Yeah, I mean, they're doing it in that respect, definitely. You know, we have, you know, a certain practice that we do to prepare ourselves for channeling. We actually wear what we call shawls, and that's our way of letting the divine know that we're in the formal practice of channeling, so that it's not just Tom and AJ speaking to you, it's that we've stepped aside and we're allowing that divine energy and that channeling to come through. And we go into a light trance, which is why when we do our channeling, we always record and transcribe all of the information for two reasons. One, that it's usually very dense and jam-packed. They really get right to the point. And the other is that, you know, we're not really present for it all. You know, we might remember about 20% of what was said. And so, you know, that's helpful for us to go back and see. And what's fascinating when we're doing the channeling together is that when we read it back in the transcript, it's like one person speaking. You know, we can't differentiate, oh, Tom channeled this and AJ channeled that, because it's just so, the tone and the messaging is so complete. It's really, I mean, we have to pinch ourselves sometimes. It really is a phenomenal experience.
But to answer your question, I think one of the differences between channeling and other psychic work is that psychic work, medium work, where I see grandma behind you and I can tell you why grandma's standing next to you and what she wants you to know, it is a little different because channeling is really from this much higher level of
Right.
consciousness, right? And source is just one name for this central intelligence, but I love the word source because it's about source consciousness.
Right.
Right. It's really where we plug into source.
Right.
Right. We align with the source. And in that, the messages become somewhat universal. So it's interesting how often we give very similar messages across groups. So the guides begin with similar messages across groups. We want you to understand that you are adored. We want you to really take that on. We want you to understand that everything is possible for you and available to you, and that your consciousness can continue to grow. We want you to understand that the divine sees every being as whole, not broken, not a mistake, not an accident, but simply as a whole being. In fact, that's how they advocate for healing. They really advocate that the individual and everyone around them see the wholeness of the individual, because we've lost sight of that. The minute when we have now defined ourselves by an illness, by any kind of illness, chronic or otherwise, so they want everyone to know that they are seen by the divine as whole. Right. And a few other things from that are universal in nature. But it's so interesting because the way the guides work is that they immediately move to conversation. It's why we call our group Channeling Conversations with Source, because they may give a couple of these universal messages for the group, especially if they're new people in the group.
Yes.
They know that immediately. And they have some very specific things that they want to make sure everyone understands. But then the dialogue is very specific to the individual. So the questions that an individual has, the circumstances the individual is under, this becomes what the the guides want to help you work out, because in doing so, you'll be able to apply those general principles, and you'll be able to work through those principles in your everyday life. So it's interesting, because we definitely are constantly seeing clients who are learning how to engage with divine. Right?
Yes,
So that,
me included, hands down.
yeah. Do I buy the red truck? Suddenly becomes of a lesser importance than, right, do I have a life purpose? And the answer is always
Right.
yes. Right. The answer is always yes. And so I think that's the way to think about what channeling can do and the way channeling can work. They are very universal messages, but they have individual interpretations, or the word that the guides love to use is realization. They just like this word. And
Yeah.
what they mean is, you're knowing something and you're realizing something are different, right?
Yeah.
You're fully embracing a concept. So we may know we're loved, of course, God loves me, of course, but we don't realize what that love is all about and what is available to me in it. And so I think those conversations are critical to help people make some realizations.
I agree. I agree, because I think everything is fear-based nowadays, and people have doubt, and as humans, there's guilt, there's shame, there's not feeling enough, there's not feeling worthy, not knowing life's purpose. I think that's where everyone is right now. It's like, that's the big question nowadays. I'm saying,
Yeah.
like, what's my purpose? What am I here for? And that's the universal question as humans, right? What do the
Would you
guides
like
say
to hear what
about
the
that?
guides, would you like to hear how the guides
Please.
answer? You're
Yes.
here to understand completely your soul's identity. You're
Ooh,
here for self-realization. And they don't mean just you, Dawn. They mean
right.
you, soul. They mean you across the trajectory of time, because every lifetime is a new discovery and a
Right.
new opportunity for self-realization, right? So this lifetime. And then the second thing that they say most often is that your purpose is joy. Your purpose is to fully embrace this time. The game's here, right? The game's
Right.
here on Earth, and or wherever you've incarnated this lifetime.
Right.
But the game's here. And so, because all the learning is here, all the
Right.
opportunity for growth is here. And rather than seeing growth as a, boy, I'm dumb, someone's got to school me, they see growth as expansion. They say the universe only does two things: it expands and it creates. And that's
Right.
really a helpful way to think about it.
Yeah, and it's really fascinating that we're on this earth where there's so much diversity for us to expand into, for us to engage in our creative endeavors. It really is quite remarkable what we're doing on earth and how we're expressing ourselves and all of the avenues and the way that we can do that. And so the guides are always interested in that from our larger soul's perspective of how our choices and our experiences help us grow and expand, and how our awareness of that impacts others and helps them grow and expand, because we don't live on little islands. We're social
No.
creatures by nature, and we are dependent on each other by nature as well. And so as we expand into our choices and expand into our awareness, so too do we expand into this idea of how am I impacting another? How can I help another? How can we work together? And this is where the transformation is coming. And it's interesting, as we look at the earth and as we look at what we're doing as well, a lot of the traditional ways in which we find ourselves falling into habits, even the things that we watch on television, we call drama. Even our entertainment is based in this idea of conflict or scarcity.
Right.
Or chaos. And so, as we slowly shift in consciousness, those things will change.
Yeah, we're down to
Yes.
baking shows, AJ and I.
Yeah, I know.
We're down to baking shows, because I just the
Seriously.
vibration, we just can't do most of entertainment.
I'm with you on
But
that. I hardly watch TV just because it's just honest for me. It's nothing but negativity and drama and chaos. And like, I look at that and I go, I have my own stuff. Like, why do I care about a celebrity reality? Like, and that's just me. Like, it's like, it's with love and life, but I'm like, I have my own issues. Like, what do I care just because you're famous? Like, why am I going to feed into this drama? Like, I have to worry about what I have to do and heal and overcome and challenge myself. It's like I have time for that.
Yeah.
yeah,
But
well,
notice too, Dawn, how you yourself have grown. Like,
right.
Yeah.
you're no longer attracted to that. There was a time where a lot of that was very appealing, but less and less of our consciousness is placed in those vibrations. They just you don't have any relationship with them anymore. And that's what we're seeing as things percolate forward in our social consciousness in the world, in our political system or in our economic system or in the diversity of cultures, how things we just don't hold resonant vibration to those
Right.
things anymore. We're wanting and we're creating something new, and so it's in the places like your channel and what we're doing, which is where people are gravitating to grow in their awareness, to grow in their consciousness, and to grow in their communities.
But that really
Right.
means alignment, right?
Yes.
So you're aligned to something. You're aligned to your culture, you're aligned to group thinking, you're aligned to your employer, or you're aligned to source. So source is always sort of saying through the guides, see things through my eyes.
Right.
And we trust that then you'll make decisions that serve you better. Right. So
Right.
that lovely consciousness we've been talking about, that ability to say, TV's not cutting it for me anymore. It just doesn't make me feel good.
Right.
Or gossiping doesn't work for me anymore. Or putting someone down or criticizing myself doesn't work anymore. That
Right.
it's just not aligned and I can feel it. I can feel it vibrationally.
Yep.
Right. Because we know every part of that vibration affects how we feel.
That's
Right. It
right.
changes our emotional state. And so that state of joy, really at the highest level of our vibration, this is one of the highest places humans can vibrate to, is joy.
Right.
A lot of people think it's love, but love creates
No.
joy. It's
Right.
actually joy.
Right.
And the guy said to us, your human capacity at the top is joy, but we can barely get you there.
This is true.
You don't live in this state of being. You kind of wait for some occasion to throw you there, right? Someone
Right.
giving you a gift, Christmas or something, something like that. But you can achieve that anytime. And by achieving that, you can live in the state of joy at all times. And I'll tell you, during times of transition, they say, quite honestly, we've got bumpy roads ahead. We've had bumpy roads,
Of
and we have more
course.
bumpy roads. And the only antidote is joy. The only way to get through that is to be aligned, to control your vibration, and to live in a state of joy, and then watch everything just sort of fall out around you. Right? It's just amazing.
How can and this is the big question, I think, for even for me, how can you get to that state when you have so many outside distractions in life? Because it is like this is a challenge to be on earth and to fight not only one's own demons, but everything,
Yeah.
all, and I call it noise, like the outside
Yes.
stuff, the noise. How can one stay in a state of joy when you have all this stuff coming at you and you're trying to stay positive and hopeful and optimistic, and you're like, that's fake, like being happy all the time or being in a state of joy when there's horrible things sometimes that happen to humans, or we lose our jobs, we lose our finances, someone's sick. How do we stay in that state?
Yeah, you raised some very good points, and it's important to acknowledge all of that. You don't want to deny anything that's going on in your environment or any of your feelings that are legitimately there for you as well. But once again, the guides say that you're on this earth. There's so much there for you to focus in on that can shift you away from feeling down or feeling hopeless or feeling mired in your circumstances. That little bit of synchronicity that happens in your life, that little bit of good luck, that bird that sings to you, or that song that comes on the radio. There are so many ways you can pivot the way you think in any given moment, so that your mind or your emotions or your overall vibration doesn't go down the rabbit hole and doesn't sort of go in a downward, out of control spiral, and you feel stuck and helpless. It's very true. We can't go from 0 to 100 in a second. You can't go from depression and say, well, get happy. It just doesn't work. But there are things that you can focus on. And more importantly, the guides say, with such unconditional love, is that you can always make new choices. Sometimes we think that the choices we make are that we'll be judged by those, or that we have to own those, and that they'll stick with us forever. But you can always make new choices, even if they're small steps and small choices, to the things that bring you happiness, the people that bring you happiness, or the things that you want to attract in your life. And it's interesting because, when Tom and I put our shawls on and we have our channeling, practice, it's at such a level of vibration, and it's with such an intention to bring in the highest and the truest and the best, for us to deliver those messages, that those lower level energies or those lower level thoughts or vibrations, they can't come anywhere close. As a matter of fact, they're repelled by the light. And so it's interesting because as you slowly change your vibration, that's why everyone's talking about high vibe principles right now. As you slowly change your vibration, the things that held you back or that kept you down, or even the mindset that you once had about things, your worldview will slowly change, and you'll start to see and attract things that are of a higher and vibration for you in your world, in your worldview.
And this is why the guides teach what they call joy practices. They really help train people and give people an opportunity to train themselves so that they can stay in higher vibrations more habitually, right? So that you're not sort of here and then boom, down you go, and here and then down you go, because some circumstance, someone said something or something happened. And what happens is the opposite. After a while, this starts to be the way you react to all the things around you, some of which just becomes invisible to you. It's not important. And you start to just, oh, who cares?
Right? It is what it is.
And think about this. If I understand Source adores me as much as it do I really care what the guy up the street says about my car?
Right.
Do I care? And so that perspective starts to get formed. So there is some alignment that can happen over time and with some practice. And guides are quite practical about that. But it means that I'm going to have to make some decisions about my environment, because I might be in an environment where it's hard to do that practice. I'm around people that are always negative, and I'm around situations that always bring me down or challenge me. And so those might be some of the choices people have to make as well.
And that's where free will comes in. Right. I agree with that completely. Is there a certain vibration? Just real quick, I want to know this before I lose my train of thought. Is there a certain vibration as humans that we should be at in order to connect with Source? You know how you have all the sound healing hurt sounds? Does it go by sound almost, like, because it's vibration? Like, how would one
There's so many things that we do both consciously and unconsciously, so to adjust our vibration, and there are some conscious decisions you can make toward that. one of the things that we do every morning is we put on clothes, right? And we often like to pick the clothes or, style our hair or however it is that make us feel good, that put us in a place of well-being. Sometimes, if you find your thoughts are running away from you, I often say snap your fingers and break that train of thought. Some people find, ringing a bell or listening to happy or music that makes them feel good is a way of shifting your vibration. But in terms specifically of your question, it is about stopping and becoming still and, allowing for that self-love and allowing for that presence to come in. Finding your own resonant frequency is probably the best way to start that connection. And notice too how this is everything we've been talking about is a journey of introspection. It's something that you do. Like as much as I might, be happy and joyful and everything like that, there's nothing that I can do that can make Tom happy. And there's nothing that Tom can do that can make me happy. It's something, it's somewhere that he has to arrive at and I have to arrive at for myself. But notice, one of the things about us that I feel is special is that we have this alignment. We're so aligned in the way we think and the way we feel about each other and our worldview and the important work that we're doing that, we don't even think about it anymore. And I think that's quite fascinating.
So
beautiful. It's beautiful
agree.
too. Seriously.
Yeah, thank you. I would agree that that really the way in which you get to the vibration, but the vibration, right? So there are people who talk about the God frequency and all that sort of stuff and measure it by hertz. I really don't see, the divine saying, "Oh, one more decibel, almost," right? Because again, it's sort of antithetical to their being. And what I do see though is that the frequency in which you feel divine, you feel divinity, feel source, that frequency. You just have to get there even once to kind of know that's what I'm shooting for. And this is why we have these wonderful emotions, because they make it clear as a bell, what frequency you're at. So you do always sort of know. So the question is, what feels great? What feels that you're on top of the world? We even use that kind of language to describe, being in heavenly bliss or divinity or divine bliss, right? So that's what we would recommend that people work towards. But again, it's a matter of sort of letting go of those things that are pulling that frequency. There's a lot of sort of surrender that has to happen to say, is it serving me to concentrate on this? And how can I let that go? And we find meditation's a great way to do that. But really the key for raising your vibration is appreciation. And the guide said there are a million things around you right now that you could focus your attention on that would raise your vibration immediately.
Yes, regardless of circumstances. And I think that's quite phenomenal when you think about it.
I had a family member who was quite ill and in quite a serious intensive care situation. And I had to take care of other family situations and was driving back to the hospital for this procedure that had about a 50-50 chance of working or killing this family member. And so it was a very stressful time. And I remember driving to the hospital and all of a sudden noticing this beautiful tree and saying out loud, "What a pretty tree." And immediately everything shifted for me. Everything lifted. And I was so grateful that that tree kind of put itself in front of me.
That's the key.
Yeah.
Gratitude.
Yeah. It was there all along. Yep. And so when I start to say, so think about it in the opposite way. If I start to say, gosh, I feel miserable. Gosh, the world sucks. Gosh, things are terrible. That I stop and I go, wait, there's something beautiful around me. I'm going to find it. I'm going to find it.
just go
or
outside and look around and see nature and see the birds flying in the clouds and feel the sun on your face and breathe in the fresh air, or go outside at night and see all the stars in the sky. Like, there's so much to be grateful for, and there's so much beauty in this world. I
yeah,
mean,
but part of that is also understanding that you're never doing it by yourself, that you do have
right,
incredible divine guidance. And so you have your own spirit guides, you have your own angels, you have far more guidance than you'll probably ever be aware of or need to be aware of, that is constantly saying, look over there, look at that, look over there. There's something beautiful. Look at that. Here's something marvelous about you. Let's look at
right.
that.
What
And you
do
know
the
what?
guides say about how we as humans could connect to our own spirit guides? Because I know we all, like, there's a team, from what I understand, like we all have so many beings and spirit guides and grandfathers. There's just, God only knows how many. Like, are they all around us all at once, or do some like visit? Like, how does this all work?
Well, we never got the rule book, I'll tell you that. But I will say that what the guides have sort of shared with us is that you have what you need. In fact, it's really fascinating because they often say the kind of guides that you have around you are based on your vibrational need. They're based upon your soul's need at the time. So one of the first spirit guides that I got encountered in my life when I started looking, right, and started learning about all this, was my joy guide. And it was because I needed my joy guide. I was not feeling joy. And
Right.
so it wasn't surprising that she called herself Mirth. And she would say, you may call me Mirth, but that is not my name.
Ooh,
It's funny for the beginning. And so, but she was always sort of around, it felt like a she, always around quite a bit to just lift me in joy. So the point is that you have guides that meet your need. Some for a moment, some for a lifetime, some for a period of time, right? When you're in difficult transition, when something's going on for you that requires more spiritual support, that
right,
support is always there. The other things the guide said that was fascinating was that you're having the kind of guidance that you relate to most. So the joke that they kind of said was, whatever works for you, baby. And what they meant by that is that if you come from a Catholic background, then you're more likely to feel the presence of Mother Mary. If you come from a Hindu background, you may feel Shiva, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, there's and again, AJ's connection with the intergalactic beings had started from his youth. And so that was an image of a guide that was most helpful for him because he knew who that was. And so,
right.
in the entire realm, there are the etheric realm, there are constantly sort of let me go because I know I can address that need for that soul. Now, you
Right.
also have lifetime guides, certainly, that are around you.
Your loved ones that have passed over as well can also
Can
be
be.
an influence for you as well. And you know what's interesting too? I find that your pursuit of interests, your pursuit of what makes your heart sing, are also, interestingly enough, when you're closest with your guides.
Mhm.
And I want to give you a simple example here because the guides are very practical. But I like to garden and I like to be out in the garden. And you know how easy it is just to, spend an hour or two in the garden, replanting or pulling out weeds or
Right.
trimming back or anything like that. And it's amazing because often the guides will come through to me, the elemental guides and the spirits of the trees and everything around me. And they will guide me as, go over here. This plant needs some extra water. This plant needs some trimming. And it's interesting how when we are close to our interests, our guides come forward and provide us, instruction or synchronicity or good luck to help propel us on our way. So I think that's quite interesting.
That's beautiful too. I never thought of it that way. Like, even something as simple as just doing something that you love, there's a connection there. I never looked at it that way before. That's
Yeah,
really
it's
cool.
fascinating because, we often think that, things are against us, that we're fighting an uphill battle,
Right.
whereas the opposite is actually the case. The universe loves you unconditionally. You have, an abundant universe that is there to provide anything you want should you decide to go after it, no matter what that is. And so it's really quite fascinating to look for that in that respect.
And what a lovely then way to look at the rest of your life, so that the circumstances in your life no longer feel like something's beating me up. Something
Right.
is keeping me from succeeding. Something is getting in my way. Why don't you love me? Right? What's wrong
Right.
with me, universe? And instead start to recognize, oh, this circumstance is helping me grow. There's something, and it might be as simple as someone who insulted you that day, who
Right.
helped remind you of your own value, because you need to remember you were getting too dependent on other people's voices. Or it
Right.
could be that you lost that home because there was something very valuable for you to grow into in understanding the value of a home, and understanding, or in finding your right home. We have a blog on our blog site, on our website. You can reach it via our website. It's called the Joy Blog. And a couple of years ago, the guides downloaded a blog, an essay called The Floor Beneath. And the entire essay is about this process of when life collapses, when everything falls apart, and what that's all about and what that causes. And their point is, there's already a floor beneath. The floor collapsed because you outgrew it. You
Yeah.
no longer needed it. There's a better floor beneath, but it's hard to get you off that first floor. You get really
Oh yeah.
dependent and stuck and habitual. And so it's a lovely way when you start to think in this way. Everything is toward my advantage.
Yep.
Everything can work towards my joy. Then
I agree with
it's
that, Thomas. I do. And
yeah,
and I realized this, and it took me a long time to realize this, but I used to be the type of person that I always thought things happened to me, right?
yeah, yeah,
Now things happen for me. And it's a
yes, yeah,
different way to look at it, because I truly believe what is meant for my life will not pass me by. And if there's a reason why something happens, an event happens in my life, it was because I outgrew it. And there was something better. There was something I needed to learn. So when you kind of put humility in there a little bit, and you can kind of laugh at it, even though sometimes events are just downright horrific, and we have to get through the pain, and we have to work through everything. Looking back, it's like, wow, if that didn't happen the way it happened, I would not be where I am right now. And
mm,
things don't happen to us, they happen. I really truly believe things happen for us. I really like,
sure.
what do
Yeah.
you guys feel about that?
Yeah, we entirely agree. And that's definitely the way the guides have been. They say all of your circumstances, everything in your life is there for you to expand into and to grow and to make new choices from that. And it's interesting because, life isn't necessarily the sweet caramel. There's a box of chocolates, and some you like and some you don't like. Some are
Right.
better than others. And so you're always making those choices. But what's interesting is when you have a situation before you, or a circumstance before you that doesn't quite go your way, or that you're not happy with, when you look at it from the approach of things happening for you, you can at least take that breath and say,
Yep.
okay, I don't understand this right now, but I know that in some aspect it's there to help me. And if
Right.
it's there to help me, therein is also the solution as well. Therein is the answer and the way. And I think that's quite interesting.
And it may be the very reason why you're here in this incarnation. We had a client who came to the guides to talk about how she could finally get over very abusive parental relationships that were still haunting her
As an adult, yeah.
decades later, were still haunting her in many ways. And the guide's answer very simply was, you chose her, talking about her mother. You chose her. You
Yeah.
chose her. You said, I'm going to incarnate into a family that doesn't know how to love. And in doing so, my soul will know how to love. And in fact, what was fascinating is we kind of sat there with our jaws open, Tom and AJ, because this was one of the kindest, sweetest, most loving persons we had ever met. And
Yeah.
so we were like, mission accomplished. But the guides
Yeah.
wanted to understand your desire has an awful lot to do with all of this. And many of the circumstances of your life you were chose, right? That
Yeah.
in other words, you're never a victim. You're
Right.
just never a victim. That
This
there are
was our
many
soul
times.
contract. Like, I believe that. And it took me a
Yeah,
long time to even understand that. It's like,
yeah,
whoa, like we really, we signed up for this stuff before we came here and we just forgot we did. And it's like, it's almost like trying to find the pot at the end of the rainbow, so to speak. It's like,
Right.
we really know everything up there. And then we kind of, I call it dumb down when we come down to this plane, we forget everything. And it's like, now we have to try and remember. It's like we're on this, it's like going through this maze of like, okay, I came down this path and there was a wall. Okay, well, what do I do? Do I push through the wall? Do I make a new door? Do I jump over? Is this going to send
Right.
me? And it's really, it's just so fascinating when you look at it from that perspective, and then you realize, well, we kind of chose this. We signed this soul contract to experience the things we're experiencing, but it's for our own growth. It's for our soul's own growth.
we did so understanding the support that was around us in divine, right? We did so
Right.
understanding that ultimately I have a million chances. So if I get it in this lifetime, great. If I don't, then I have the opportunity to do it again.
Right.
I have a choice to return to it. So there's a knowledge that happens in non-physical that I
Right.
think analogous to say, yeah, I want to be put into a body that's going to get cancer or whatever it might be. It doesn't really matter. I'm
Right.
just going to be put into a set of circumstances that are for my greatest and highest good.
Right.
That understanding the universe is always working towards our greatest and highest good. What a wonderful way to live our lives.
And you can
Yeah.
see now how that relationship of paying attention to your vibration. There's that saying, attitude is everything, so to speak. And so, as you are focusing your intention on the contrast, I don't want that. I'm experiencing that right now. That's what I don't want. And that motivates you to focus on what you do want, or to focus more intently on what you do want. As you keep doing that in the large and the small things in your life, you will grow and expand and change, and your vibration, your resonant vibration, will become higher and higher and higher. You'll have a more sunnier disposition, so to speak. There'll be less times during the year you catch the flu. You'll
Right.
have people around you that love you unconditionally. You'll have a job and a career and a purpose that gives you joy and fulfillment. We often think that there are people that are, experiencing, tough times and difficult circumstances. And that's very true. But there are also people out there that are leading a wonderful life, that are very fulfilled and very happy. And so, we want to remind everyone that exists. There are people out there that are doing that are focusing on that have, that wake up every morning and have their affirmations. I am loved. I am a divine being. I'm supported by the universe. I share unconditional love. All of these things that immediately put you in a better space, no matter what condition you are in.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more with that. And it's not about the materialistic stuff, because I think that's where people go wrong. They're like, oh, well, I'm not happy because I don't have, this in my life. And it's like, no, like when you leave, you don't get to take all this is materialistic. This is not going to matter. It's about you. You like the focus needs to come back on you. What are you doing for yourself? Are you being the best person you can possibly be each and every day? And sometimes things are not going to be great on certain days. You may only be able to give 50% to yourself, but at least you're trying. It's the effort put into who you are, being the best version you can. And some days are going to be great and others aren't going to be, but it's about you. It's about growing as a person.
And sometimes that trying means letting go. It means
Yeah.
surrender. It
That's
means,
hard for a lot of people.
one of the things that the guide said recently that really we had to go back when we saw it on the transcript and think about it was, you are very good at doing. We would like you to be good at being. And what they mean by that is just being is enough. There's nothing I have to do. There's no one to prove to. There's no one keeping
Yeah.
score. That I have incredible divine support. Sometimes I just need to be. Right.
Yeah.
And so there are times when some of the answers are, put in a little effort, go meditate, go clean up your room. We joke about this all the time when we watch haunted house programs that we can tell every time we're like, oh yeah, that's a real haunting because it's such a mess and
Right.
chaos brings all
Right.
that energy.
Right.
And so, yeah, side note, but my point is that there are times when there are things I do have to do. There's responsibility that I do have to take on, or I have to recognize this outcome is because of this choice. And I
Right.
have to put two and two together about that. But there are many times when I just have to be, just let me stop trying to make something happen and trust the universe enough to allow all of the beautiful cooperative components, I think Esther calls it, to come together. That
So true.
that outsides just simply call it being. And
Yes.
what a lovely habit to take on, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Just being is, I mean, and that I just started that. I will be perfectly honest with you guys, because, my head goes a mile a minute. So for
Yeah.
me to like come back down and be like, okay, sit still, meditate, close your eyes, just listen, just be still, just
Mhm.
be. It's
Mm,
very peaceful. It's very, and I
mm,
usually go outside at night and do this because I love being under the stars. Like to me, that's very calming. And I feel at
Yeah.
home when I look up there. I don't know why, but I do.
No,
Since I
that's
was a little kid, I do. Seriously, I feel like I don't even know what that's about, but I just run with it and I'm like, oh, this is great. Like, and I just feel this calmness and this just knowingness of, okay, I could just be here and just observe and admire and love the beauty. And I have no expectations right now except just to enjoy what's out here. And it's beautiful. It's a
yes.
beautiful
there's a million
experience.
things to enjoy. There's always a million things to enjoy. Yeah.
And there's
Oh,
a million beautiful things about your own beingness that is wonderful as well. And when you take that time, you really do learn to appreciate all of the wonderful things that is about you, that you love about yourself. And it's interesting, sometimes when we let go and we just allow ourselves to be and we don't try so hard, it allows other people to see our natural beauty and our natural beingness. And we actually become more prosperous and we attract the people that love us and we attract the things that we want more easily to us.
right.
It's fascinating. We're allowing that in and we're just allowing the things in our resonant vibration to naturally find them their way to us.
And you can
Wow.
see why we love to serve the guides because they've taught us so much.
Yes.
We
Love
sit in
this.
the front row of the classroom with them because
Yeah, we really do.
there's so much richness there that it's easy for us to say, okay, we'll take that mission on because we see the value of the messages.
Absolutely. No, and I think it's beautiful. And I do really call it a gift. It really is a gift because yes, I know we as humans, we all have the capabilities of doing this, but let's face it, not all of us have this gift right now. Like we just don't. And I hope we all get there one day. But in the meantime, you guys can teach us how to connect and how to be and how to spread the message. I think it's so beautiful that you both have this and that you're able to have a beautiful relationship, because I think at the end of the day, we all want that. We really
Yeah.
do. And I'm not just talking about his channels, each other, like the way you guys flow. This flow is key. And I know that the way you guys can understand each other. And it's just, it's so beautiful to see. And it melts my heart. It really does.
Don, I'll tell you something funny. Last Christmas, we
yeah.
brought our gifts to one another Christmas morning, and we had wrapped our gifts to each other in the exact same wrapping paper. That's how tuned we've become. And
See?
then we opened up our Christmas cards to each other, and we chose the exact same card for each other.
I know.
Did not surprise me one bit. What you just said to me
it was
doesn't
funny
even
because
surprise me.
I thought, well, maybe the wrapping paper is a coincidence, but when we opened the card, we're like, no, this is unbelievable. But you know,
Oh,
that's the way the universe works. When you have what we're talking about here is a very important principle, and that is the principle of affinity. You know, when you are in alignment, when you're happy with yourself, when you're happy with your environment, and you allow others in that are copacetic with that, you know, that really gel with that, you know,
right.
it really is phenomenal what occurs for you, and that therein is the promise of humanity. And in that way, I know that there's a brighter future for each and every one of us, because I can see that happening in ways large and small right now.
And I don't
Yes.
worry about society, quite honestly. Just to bring this conversation full circle, honestly, there's many years that I did, and not even that long ago. But what I've come to understand is that things will get exposed to individuals. I really trust that the universe is slowly exposing individuals so that when they're ready, they'll be able to hear. Now, I also know that probably your listeners and many who are sort of already dipped their toe in to consciousness, they play a critical role as well, because
Yeah.
that person who's just starting to feel dissatisfied with their choices and starting to wonder if there aren't other choices to be made is looking to you and I. They're
That's
looking
right.
to those who are a few steps ahead, and those folks are looking to people a few steps ahead and a few steps ahead. And so I don't worry about humanity, because I see everything in perfect place and in perfect timing. It's frustrating for us because we see human suffering as it's happening. But we also sort of understand that every act of human suffering brings with it a new opportunity for consciousness. It
And
really,
growth too. Yep.
that's right.
And I mean, that's
Yeah.
why I started this channel, you know, because I knew that through my own trials and tribulations, I wanted to bring people on here that I could hold a platform for and bring joy and hope and healing to other people. That is the whole
And
point of this channel. It is not to monetize. Like, if that comes, great, but that is not my mission. Like, I know what I've gone through as a human thus far, and I wanted to create something where I bring hope to people and healing, because we need to rely on each other. And that's where it's my heart. My
Right.
heart's in this and my passion's in this, and I want to help others heal
So,
and grow and learn and think outside the box too. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of us, we're all in little boxes, and we place ourselves in boxes of, we have to, be in this type of belief system or this way or that way. And it's like, stop putting yourself in a box. Like,
yeah.
don't do that. Like, just be and explore and get curious about everything. And then kind of build your own little belief system and take tools from this and take tools from that and create your own healing tribe. Like, why not? I don't think there's any right or wrong. I really don't.
you're really seeing those communities emerge now, where people are doing that, and they're finding new tribes and new communities and new levels of understanding and new interrelationships, which I think is very interesting.
So I'm hearing the guides say, in reference to you, divinely placed, divinely placed. And
Oh,
I think that's important,
you're gonna make me cry.
Well, don't mean to do that.
No,
But
it's
I
okay.
but I also hear them say, and even if you didn't heed that call, we love you.
Hmm.
Even if you didn't do a thing, you stayed in bed all day, we still adore you because we know your heart. We know who you are. We know what you are. And we know that you won't stay in bed. But even if you did, it didn't matter because we absolutely adore you. But I definitely, and we really bless everyone who is doing whatever their heart is calling them to do to bring us more towards consciousness. And so they're definitely acknowledging the divinity to your choices.
Oh my gosh, that means so much. Like, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Like
Yeah.
I'm filled. I'm overwhelmed right now with just I feel that. And just to know that what I'm doing, like again, it's not for anything, but like I just know I'm following my heart. Like I'm doing what my heart's telling me to do. It's not for any other purpose. It's just
Yep.
because I know I feel it. Like I have this knowing that this is something I have to do. I have
Yep.
to help others.
You're doing it because it gives you joy, and that's enough.
That's
Yes.
it.
That's
Yes.
all it can be.
I've been the happiest in my life. I'll be perfectly honest with you guys. I
Yeah.
have been the happiest in my life. I'm 42 years old. I am the happiest in my life just doing this simple, like it brings me so much joy to connect with others, to learn, to teach, to guide. I feel at home. I feel
Yeah.
good. And there's nothing else that's coming in that I'm like, oh, it's just like this genuinely brings me joy.
Yeah, and we so see that in you. And it's interesting too how there are so many right now that are doing just that. I mean, we're seeing this explode with individuals on the internet as they're expressing what makes their hearts sing, as they're communicating their interests, as they're sharing the knowledge and the gifts that they themselves have honed and developed, whether it be in dancing or singing or a craft of some kind or an insight. And so, we really are on the brink of something very special here, although you won't necessarily hear that in the narrative of our media or, the stock market or anything else. But it's there and it's coming and it's coming to the forefront. And so that's why, when you asked us to come on, we said yes, because we felt that affinity and we knew what you were doing.
I just cannot thank you guys enough for being here. I mean, I don't know. Do you guys like wanna bring someone in to channel? I don't even know because again, this is so organic for me and I just love talking. But if there is a message, if the guides want to say something, like please, if everything's good, like we could totally just wrap it up. But I really want to throw this back at you guys because you guys are my first channelers on this show, like
Oh,
hands down.
great.
So it's like special for me, like wow, okay, but I want it organic. And if you guys want to bring someone in, that's great. If not, I'm cool with it too.
We may want to spend some time, maybe next time, doing a segment where we spend some time just you having a conversation with the guides.
Yes, I think we really
Okay.
like that. I feel like today they really got out what they wanted to say today, and so I'm just going to trust that.
Me
But I
too.
do,
Me too.
there's an opportunity for a dialogue, so we're happy to come back anytime and do that.
I would love that. I would love that.
Good.
And please tell my listeners, gentlemen, where can people find you? And I'll tell my audience too, these guys are phenomenal. Check out their website. There are so many, subscribe to their newsletter. Like, I just love reading the messages every Wednesday. It's Wisdom Wednesday. I love that. I love that.
Good.
Oh, thank you,
It's
Dawn.
so
Appreciate
good.
it.
So please tell my
Well,
audience where they can reach you.
Yeah, definitely. You know, everything is found at our website, and that's speakingfromsource.com. And there you can sign up for free for our Wisdom Wednesdays. We love to share the messages of the guides without any, financial obligation on anyone's part. You can always learn from what they have to say. Every month we do an online channeling called Conversations with Source, and that's a group channeling that you can join online, and you can sign up there at our events page. And we can also, on our services page, you can also book a personal one-on-one for a deep dive to learn about your circumstances and what's going on in your life, and ask specific questions of the guides that they'll answer. And of course, if you're a social media bunny like me, you can find us on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. Simply type in your browser at Speaking From Source.
When there's a message that we just think everybody's got to hear, we'll turn it into a YouTube. So you'll actually
Yes.
hear us
Beautiful.
channel on a topic. The other thing to say is that starting December 12th,
Yeah.
we'll be a part of Soul Search TV, which will be a streaming service on Roku and other streaming services. And we'll have a 12-episode series, and it's called The Infinite Pathway Journey to Self-Realization. And every week we take a topic that the guides have taught about and really explore it together using clips from the guides channeling to make more sense of it. So
I
There's a
can't
lot to
wait for
look forward to.
that.
yeah, we're excited about it. You'll
Right.
find information. Trust me, when it launches, we'll have it in the Wisdom Wednesday and a few other
Oh,
places. So
oh my gosh,
lots
guys,
of
that's
opportunity.
wonderful.
Good.
That's
you.
wonderful. Thank you guys so much for being here again. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, share this message. Let's enlighten the world. Let's help heal each other, bring love, light, and happiness. Thank you guys so much for being here, and I will see you on the next episode. Be well, guys.